Greetings and God bless. I wanted to do a little video about reckless drivers and pedestrians. And so, if you look at the description box, there's an article about how more drivers are killing pedestrians. So there's an article from 2019, and then there's a Wall Street Journal article from 2021. Pedestrians killed 17% of the time. And I didn't put it in the description box, but I also saw that um, drivers kill children more than anything else. So everybody's talking about guns or, a certain medical thing, but it's actually people running over children that is, the mainstream way that children are dying. I mean, we don't want to. Nobody's going to talk about abortions, in mainstream news, but anyways, so my question is what's the self-defense that a pedestrian has with this mentality of terrorizing and doing attempted murder? Because that's what drivers are doing now. It's normal for drivers to do attempted murder on pedestrians. And some might say, oh, well, the statistics are skewed or whatever. The thing is, it's so stressful walking that people do drive. More people are driving than walking. So that may, alter things like statistics. But nonetheless, this is substantial. And when I'm looking at pedestrian self-defense for reckless drivers, for dealing with aggressive drivers, I'm not finding anything. So I'm just wondering if anybody has any suggestions. And definitely everybody's going to use the excuse that the driver is tired, that the driver's in a rush, that the driver is on their cell phone, and everybody's justifying that. Because everybody is a driver and everybody's doing this, everybody, the majority of people are not paying attention. They're bending the rules. They're just in a rush. They're just putting their, they're just being selfish. And we're in such a culture of impulses. And I'm talking about sober people. I'm talking about Christians, as well as just the average demographic of drivers. So, basically, pedestrians are at the mercy of these reckless drivers, and there's not a whole lot of community protection for pedestrians. It seems like everybody wants everybody on the road. And it doesn't make sense, because when you have every last person in a car, that means you're going to have a lot more traffic and you're not going to have parking. And there's just going to be more, more opportunities for accidents. It seems to me that if there's more people on the road, and just if not more accidents, it's just more inconvenient when every biped has a car. Every grandma, child, spouse, relative, it's, and I know, it seems to me like cities want everybody to be spending as much money as possible, to be just maxed out in well into debt. Cities want everybody to buy a house and pay their property taxes so children can learn how to be trans and hate their skin color if they're white, and then own a car and overpay and deal with sketchy mechanics and insurance and weird claims that don't get addressed. So, it just seems like this is the paradigm that people surrender to, because I know people who are they just accept that this unfair situation is life. And I'm wondering if, as a result, people do cut corners to pay themselves back for all of the the harms that it's just normal, like, just getting scammed by your real estate agent and getting scammed by your mechanic and getting scammed by your boss and getting scammed by the doctor or something, I mean, so anyway, though, for the drivers that actually do care, for the drivers that might want to avoid um, doing attempted murder, like there's some drivers who don't care. They're happy to do attempted murder on pedestrians. It seems like some drivers think that they are superior and that anybody who's a pedestrian is breaking the law and doesn't deserve to exist. And it seems like drivers, they'll drive at the pedestrian and they're just expecting the pedestrian to run away. They think that a pedestrian is an animal, and that the animal should run away like a bunny rabbit or like a deer, rather than that this is a human being that doesn't deserve to be bullied off the road, that doesn't deserve to be chased off the road. But police don't care about this attempted murder that cars do, and police do it themselves. I have had this happen to me. And it's not because there's no one else around. So many times I've had cars, including police cars, come at me as I'm at my light after I've waited for my light and I'm crossing the street. And for some reason, the car feels like like the car could even kind of go around me, but for some reason the car aims itself at me and speeds up. And because I don't know if they're on drugs, I don't know if they're drunk, I don't know if they're sleep deprived, I don't know if they're changing the ringtones on their phone. So when a car is aiming straight at me and going fast, accelerating, I tend to get nervous. And the thing is, my cautiousness has saved me from multiple multiple deaths, because drivers are really careless and there's not really any, not substantial penalties for drivers. So it's really, America says it's okay to kill pedestrians. Really, that's the impression I get. And I'm sure that pedestrians who are murdered by reckless, aggressive drivers, I bet it's swept under the rug. And I bet progressive liberals that are concerned about the carbon footprint, I bet they don't care. I bet they're participating. I have had Prius drivers, um, you know, cut me off when I'm trying to cross the street. So progressive liberals are totally guilty of this. And I just don't really understand why somebody who's cozy, comfortable, sitting down in their car, that they can't just grant somebody a moment. Like they just can't. They refuse to follow the law. They refuse to make a full stop, and then they refuse to allow another human being to just walk 3 feet in front of their car. Just they and the thing is, it's everybody. Okay, maybe not everybody, but it's a majority of people. And like one driver will cut me off when I'm trying to cross, trying to reach my end of the block. And the thing is, when one driver starts to go, everybody else is following the leader. So it doesn't mean that the first person who's cut me off, it doesn't mean that that person behind them is going to stop, because they're not going to stop. There's just some weird status thing, or I could see when the second person cuts me off, I can see that they're having a little bit of dilemma, but they're so greedy. They're so lacking in decency and integrity. They're so lacking in fairness. And I'm sure they're paying money to BLM. I'm sure they're donating to Antifa or PETA or whoever. So they're or to a Christian missionary somewhere. But they won't grant another human being the safety to cross the street on their light. I mean, I am very fastidious about following the lights, and like if somebody has the light and I could go, I wave people to have their the drivers have the right of way. When a driver has the right of way and they're right there, I'm like, please go ahead. Every once in a while, I do make a mistake. Every once in a while, I do zip through, but I don't create a safety hazard. I mean, I ride my bike like a old grandma, or I cross the street like a very cautious person. So it's not like my standards are very, very high, and I doubt that drivers are like, oh my gosh, that was so scary. And especially since I'm a person, like their car isn't going to be harmed when I'm taking that little extra time. Um, so, that aside, back to pedestrian self defense. So, what I'm wondering is, does anybody know of pedestrian self defense? It doesn't seem like there's, like, so let's say a car, let's say, and somebody who's attempted murder, they don't kill the person, but they've injured the person. So, sorry about that. So of course, it's up to the pedestrian to prove who made the mistake, and I'm sure police are more interested in something interesting. They really could care less about pedestrian safety, because everybody, pretty much most cars are doing attempted murder all the time. When I was living in Montana, in Missoula, the police told me the most calls they got were from drivers complaining about pedestrians walking in the downtown area, where the park, where the merry-go-round was, where the restaurants are. So in America, everybody's a little Marie Antoinette. Everybody's like, let them eat cake. Everybody's a little princess, men and women. Uh, all these drivers are so entitled. They do not feel like they are supposed to be imposed upon to follow any traffic laws unless it's dangerous to them. So if a train is hurtling at them, that driver knows not to go in front of the train or block the train. But because the driver is their car is a deadly weapon, the driver knows that it can bully and threaten a pedestrian. And it seems like a majority of the handful of pedestrians that are out here is pedestrians just allow the cars to go and have complete 100% right of way. It seems like here pedestrians have surrendered 100% their right of way when there's a car around. And, and then maybe it's I don't know what it is. I mean, I've noticed all demographics of pedestrians doing this. So the thing is, when it's your light, you get to cross. But I've seen like entitled drivers still make their turn into the crosswalk when it was the pedestrians right of way. So I don't understand what's the mentality of that. And but what are the resources that pedestrians have for self-defense? And I'm just brainstorming today. And I'm wondering, like, there's these alarms that are like 140 decibels. So I'm wondering if that, just like having that on hand, and when a driver is, about to make a turn, because that's another thing is drivers will, it'll be the the line on the road. It's the full line, the solid line, and the driver is crossing that solid line. So there's no, it's illegal for them to do that, but they're doing that. And the thing is, you don't know when they're going to do it. And then also drivers that are making a turn, they won't turn on their blinkers until like a second before they're making that turn. So you're crossing halfway. They're and you're halfway in there, and then they turn on their blinker and they want to turn right where you're going to be at. And it's very interesting because they're just expecting drivers that just expect pedestrians to run, just run for your life, literally, because drivers know that they are a deadly weapon, and they know that they're doing attempted murder. And this is the unspoken like elephant in the room. And this is all demographics. And yes, there's a handful of drivers that actually allow a pedestrian to cross safely. There's a handful of drivers that follow the law, and the majority of those who are actually safe following the law drivers are the person at their driver's test at the DMV. Somehow they manage to control their impulses just by some sort of grace of God or witchcraft or something like that. But that's the only time a lot of drivers ever drive safely, that ever drive legally. Because nowadays, just driving is attempted murder on whoever. I mean, it seems like drivers are reckless around other drivers, unless the other driver is a bigger truck or a train, and then the attempted murderers behind the wheel of a car will practice some self-control and some impulse control. And I do believe that maybe our culture has just cultivated this lack of impulse control with just this consumer culture that we're in. So, but if you're a pedestrian, and generally, who's the pedestrian? Who's somebody who's regularly walking? It's somebody who's has a different income than the person driving, or somebody who for some reason cannot drive. Maybe they're visually impaired or hearing impaired, or maybe they've had some sort of they've had their license taken away or something like that. So so these are people who are at a disadvantage, and no city safety really cares about keeping drivers legal. Everybody's just pretty much willfully criminal. And even the people who might have a twinge of conscience, I think they're just kind of going along with it because they get a burst of dopamine when they get to cut somebody off and be more important and get somewhere quicker, and just they don't have to practice impulse control. So there's these alarms that you can press a button and it can be heard some distance away. And so I was thinking about that. And I'm wondering about like a staff, because, it seems like car drivers are like, what are you going to do? I'm going to just cut in front of you because I can. And so, especially when it's snowy, icy, windy, freezing cold, and drivers are like, well, why don't you buy a car if you're in that weather? Why do I have to? Maybe I like to walk. Generally, walking is quite pleasant, even in bad weather, because you get fresh air, you get some exercise. But when the mentality is everybody behind the wheel of a car is allowed to be an attempted murderer, that's the culture, that makes walking hell. And I notice it like wherever it's a main car culture, pretty much everybody's bought into this attempted murderer kind of thing. Like, threaten people with your car. That's just a way of life, threaten people. Like, I get to threaten you because I'm on four wheels, and that's, I'm Marie Antoinette, regardless of my demographic, regardless if I'm of a liberal or a white person, a black person, a rich person, a poor person. People are like, I'm in a car, and you get out of my way. And there's a lot of drivers who probably refuse to acknowledge this, but and maybe people are so like hypnotized and dissociated that they don't even realize that they're doing attempted murder with pedestrians. But that is something I am not exaggerating. If you just sit and do a study on a major intersection where there is any pedestrian traffic, where people walk their dogs or where people ride their bikes, that's a good way to actually, when there's a lot of traffic, like when people are regularly, they kind of they can train a driver, because it seems like some intersections drivers actually follow the law, and then there's other intersections where drivers are like, to hell, I have a free pass. And I think particularly when the lockdowns happened in the spring of 2020, I noticed drivers were crazy. It was like they were like pedal to the metal, or whatever that word is. I mean, they were just flying through, not paying attention to anything, because they were like, drivers, and I had a sense of this, drivers are like, nobody else is driving, so I'm going to drive like a maniac. And so you really had to watch, because people, I mean, were they on drugs or something? I mean, yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Like, everybody's on drugs, everybody's like drinking, everybody's addicted to their phone and probably playing a game while the car is going forward. And so anyway, there's these sound audible alarms that maybe, if a car is coming too close, too fast, maybe that would work for pedestrian self-defense. Maybe having a large stick, and because when it's really slippery, I can't go fast, because if there's a lot of ice and if it's really uneven, and of course, drivers are like, you shouldn't be outside if you have to make me wait an extra second. Um, and that's you don't belong in human civilization if you're somebody who thinks that you do not have to wait an extra second for a pedestrian to lawfully, legally cross the street. If you're so angry and so selfish, and so entitled, you need to go either be in a mental institution or go to prison, because civilization is based on, we all have a right to walk, wherever it's legally, agreed upon. But it seems like this mentality, this entitled mentality of drivers is like, I get to do attempted murder on whoever I want, and they better get out of my way. So when it's icy and cold, and drivers are just like, they're still crazy, they're still reckless, they have no consideration how hard it is to walk on the ice when I'm trying to cross the street in a timely fashion. So I'll have a staff that I use that helps me keep me upright, but I'm like, I'm using this like, so that if the car is trying to cut me off because I'm still halfway across the street, then I'm just like, well, they're gonna run into me having to clear my path, literally, because people are just so insane. And I'm here in Rapid City, South Dakota. Like, this is, I'm not talking about downtown New York. I'd be safer actually if I was in downtown New York. I'd be safer if I was in San Francisco. I'd be safer if I was in the projects of any of those cities or locations, because people, their aunts don't drive, or their kids don't drive, or something like that. Like, there's just this more humane mentality, even if we were in the projects and drug dealers and everything. So there's this Marie Antoinette mentality that I've experienced in Montana, in South Dakota, and even when I was in Virginia, and where it was more than half of the population was Black. So it's like Black people can have Marie Antoinette entitlement, driver mentality as well. Like, so anyway. So so using a loud alarm, maybe that would help. I definitely, banging my staff in front of me. So, a car is gonna if they wanna crash into me and my staff, well, so that seems to work. And also I'm thinking of getting, what's that? The horn, that kind of announcer kind of a thing, like, "Let me cross. I'm crossing the street. It's my right of way." What is it? Sound horn, loud horn, speaker horn. I'm unable to think of it right now, but bullhorn, bullhorn. So I'm thinking that also, for those who are more technical and have the money, getting a GoPro and just like, tracking, like videotaping everything. I just don't have the know-how of doing a GoPro, and I don't really need more data to manage. Just I don't want to have to download every single, walk every hour that I've been outside. That's just a little. That wouldn't be good for my. Just I don't have enough time to do that kind of thing. So anyways, do you have any other suggestions about self defense as a pedestrian? Like, because police aren't going to do anything, drivers aren't really going to do anything because they just this is the American dream, I guess, is to run over people or threaten to run over people, is to do attempted murder. Um, I guess that's what makes life worth living for people, or they don't even notice it and they don't really care. Um, but I think God cares. I think God doesn't want us to do attempted murder in the day to day as you're going to get your milk and toilet paper. I don't think God approves of that. And so, if you have any other suggestions of pedestrian self defense, and this is a real issue, children are being run over, and other just all demographics and generally poorer people um, are getting run over and killed, maimed, and there's not a whole lot of support for it. But I mean, isn't this like, doesn't, I mean, being that most people walk on two legs, most people are pedestrians, and being that 100% of people have, pretty much have two legs, I do think that when a pedestrian is following the law, following the rules, when it's the right of way, as it's understood, as it's legally said in the books, and as we all have understood right of way and pedestrians and human dynamics, when somebody is doing that 100%, and when all the drivers are just like, I don't care. I get to break the rule. I get to break. Everybody wants to break the rule. Everybody wants to break this rule of decency, of fairness, of just allowing somebody to walk. And I think it may also have to do with like how a street has been designed or engineered, how cities have been engineered. Because again, it seems like I noticed some impulse control just seems to happen naturally at some intersections, and then other intersections, it's a free for all. It's insane. So, and if you know of safer locations where pedestrians, like, pedestrian friendly towns or cities or states, like, let me know in the comments. So thanks for watching. God bless.